Incheon International, one of Asia's busiest airports. Check-in is underway for the 291 passengers on Asiana Flight 214. A 10.5-hour trip across the Pacific to San Francisco. Among the travelers, the Yang family. They're returning home from a month-long vacation. They'll be flying on a Boeing 777, one of the most high-tech passenger jets in the world.
The 777 was innovative from the start. The way it was manufactured, designed, and built was completely new.
It's also among the safest. A key selling point is its advanced autopilot system. It draws information from multiple sensors all over the plane, then crunches the data and sends out commands. It's a complex, state-of-the-art airplane. And with safety the #1 priority in its design, every flight should be routine. There's no obvious sign of anything wrong, but that's all about to change.
I remember thinking, oh, I see the seawall, is that normal?
Instead of clearing the seawall, he clips it, and disaster.
It's a horrific crash that shocks America.
What's going on here? Is it a mechanical problem, or is this a human factors problem? Or a combination of both?
With multiple safety systems built into the plane, a disaster like this should never happen. So what's really behind the Asiana tragedy? In 2010, a new Boeing model rolls off the assembly line in Everett, Washington State. It's the 787, follow-up to the successful 777. Both planes have the same advanced autopilot. Before the 787 can carry passengers, it must undergo testing. During one flight, a test pilot uncovers something alarming.
A test pilot is taking the plane in for descent with the autopilot engaged. All of a sudden, the collision alarm goes off.
It's a warning there may be another aircraft below him.
So the test pilot turns off the autopilot, adjusts the throttles so that the plane can level out.
It's soon clear it was a false alarm. But then the plane does something totally unexpected.
He realizes that the plane has dropped below the minimum speed threshold.
The pilot figures out his unusual actions deactivate the low-speed protection system.
And that's really the aha moment that this unique situation and the unique combination led to the auto throttle not engaging.
Luckily, the test pilot was high enough to react. This time. But it revealed a dangerous flaw in the autopilot design, one that could prove fatal for other pilots.
This test pilot experiences this in the 787, but realizes that the 777 has the same autopilot system. So when he writes up his report, he flags it for both airplanes.
Incredibly, these warnings don't reach 777 crews.
The FAA informed everybody that, hey, if you're flying a 787, this has the potential to really bite you. The sad part about this is it never really got transferred over to the 777 community and sent up from there.
20 minutes out, the 291 passengers prepare for landing. The Yang family, returning from a month's vacation in Korea, sit in the back of the plane. The children are across the aisle from their parents, but just 2 minutes out from San Francisco, the pilot finds himself in trouble, and he realizes he's coming in too high. 450 feet above the ideal line. The pilot is running out of time to get the angle right. In a desperate attempt to get lower, the pilot selects an autopilot setting he thinks will get him back on the right path. Flight level change speed. But it only makes things worse.
Instead of bringing him down, it starts climbing the plane, making him too high.
In response, the pilot puts his engines to idle.
He brings the throttle right down to zero on the engines so that the plane will lose speed and then lose height.
Then he disconnects the autopilot to try and manually correct course. But as he turns it off, this final action triggers the trap.
The system automatically changes the throttle mode to hold, and the pilot has no idea this has just occurred.
The pilot doesn't realize it, but the plane's low-speed protection is now turned off. It's the co-pilot who finally reacts.
He kicks in a large amount of throttle to gain some airspeed. The airplane is too big, too low, and too slow.
The tail is ripped off, and the plane literally spirals and tumbles down the runway.
It's a horrific crash.
It all happened so quickly. I remember bouncing up and down in my seat. All of a sudden, we just stopped.
I checked to make sure that both my sisters were okay, and I looked over to, look for my mom and my dad.
Emergency vehicles are responding. We can see about 2 or 3 people that are moving and apparently survived.
But soon, another threat looms.
I remember the flight attendant telling us, we need to get off the plane, we need to get off the plane.
At any second, the plane's huge fuel tanks could explode.
My brother and I were able to just jump off the side of the plane because there was no slide at this exit. Firefighters started panicking, and I remember one picked me up and was running away from the plane.
Now begins a sickening wait.
My brother and I were just sitting there, worried about my parents.
The engine was still going, the engine didn't stop, and the fire was massive at the time.
The Yang children are driven across the runway to join other survivors. Just when hope is nearly gone, they see their parents in the crowd.
All I remember my mom saying was like, where are my kids? Where are my kids? And I remember just being like, we're right here. Like, we're all here together now. It's okay.
The Yang parents are rushed to the hospital. They're among 49 who suffer serious injuries. Tragically, 3 passengers die. All were seated at the rear of the airplane. The crash came without warning and left witnesses baffled.
To the general public, one would definitely ask, how could something like this happen on such a perfect day with such a reliable, safe aircraft?
In the aftermath, suspicion falls on the pilot. But when National Transportation Safety Board crash investigators start looking into it, they soon unearth deeper causes behind the pilot's error.
The investigation reveals that the confusing nature of the autopilot was a big contributing factor to this crash. And they actually recommend that all 777 pilots be trained on this hidden trap.
Most of the latest planes have far more advanced autopilot systems.
Huge developments in the sophistication of aviation systems, along with the processing power of the computers that run them, mean that modern autopilot systems are far more capable than they once were.
And as machines continue to get bigger and more complex, Asiana Flight 214 and other disasters around the world offer a warning. Automation can bring greater safety, but it also creates new risks.